Truck home, got it off the trailer. It been here for about a week. Ordered some parts off of Rock Auto. So tonight I'm gonna see if I can't get vacuum out the underside of the hood here, get that skunk out of there, get it cleaned up, and see if we can't get it back in the shop and get back to work on it. Guess we got a tire that's not holding air here, so we'll get that aired out. But tonight we're armed with a shop vac and a power washer. So try to get this thing cleaned up, get it quit stinking so bad so we can actually pull it in the shop and not drag all that dirt in there with it. So I'll get a air hose and get the power washer turned on here and we'll get it going. So before we get going too far, we'll kind of do a walk around here, what we got. Kind of go through this truck. It's got a pretty good dent in the side here. But it looks like it's a pretty clean, pretty rust-free truck. Here's the inside of it. It's got a seat. I have no idea if that's original or not. Well, I guess it's not original, it's too clean, but almost looks like it's too big to fit in here. Like there's just hardly any clearance between the wheel and the seat bench there. But a set of hubcaps in here. Some trim pieces it looks like. All in all, the inside looks like it's in pretty good shape. Looks like it's all there. Dash is pretty busted up and the windshield's broken. But there's no headliner in it. Hey look, the dome light works. Back glass looks like it's been leaking here with this gasket separated. And letting water run in the truck for some time there. Hopefully that's not going to cause any problems to the floorboards or anything. But as you look around here, it looks like it's all pretty good and rust free. No the corners of the door's not rusted out or anything. So it looks good. Definitely needs some new weather strip and that sort of stuff in the doors. This door doesn't close very well. You have to slam it. It works once in a while. So I have to look at that and see what's going on there. And take two. So last night, tried to pressure wash this thing, vacuum it out, clean it up, and all within about a minute, the power washer sucked in a O-ring from the garden hose and sucked it into the pump, started making a terrible sound. Then the battery in the camera died within a few minutes of that, so we couldn't record anything. Anyway, here we go. Well, I about washed the two-tone off of it, but ready for the car show now, as soon as we get some brakes on it. We'll start in fluid and see if we can get this thing back into the shop. So we got it back in the shop. Looks like we got a few issues to fix here before we can actually take it down the road. We got a pretty good water leak coming out of this dirty hose here, where that broken hose kind of goes from the water pump back into the block or the intake manifold there. So got to get that leak fixed up. And then it's got that fuel leak keeps getting worse and worse, and looks like it's dripping fuel. You can see it there, still dripping. So then what you couldn't see in the video was that the idle is crazy high, which you guys could probably hear. And then back here, I went to go turn the idle down and put the screwdriver in there, and the head of the idle adjustment screw just broke off. So now we're stuck in high idle mode, which I'm not sure why I was idling that high to begin with. We didn't really change anything besides putting plugs, wires, points of condenser in the thing. So unless the timing was really off, or maybe they had a couple dead cylinders they were trying to compensate for, not real sure there. So my plan is to not trust the hoses on here and not believe that I'm talented enough to get these rusty wheel cylinder bleed screws broken free. So Rock Auto has these hoses for like $5 a piece, $5-6 a piece. Is like, you know what? I think I'll just change the hose, and that lets us just cut these old hoses free. I'll try to take this brake drum off of here and just change the whole wheel cylinder, the hose, all the way back to the hard line back there. You can pump some fluid out of the hose, make sure the master cylinder's pumping fluid, and put new wheel cylinders in it and new brake lines on it, and have some safety, and the thing just works at the end. So everything looked like it was in decent shape here until I got down into the actual brake drum itself, and you can see that this rear shoe, man, it's just like gone. So that might explain why I didn't have much front brake there. So I guess besides changing wheel cylinders, probably ought to get a set of front shoes for this thing and go that way. So I guess I'll take these apart, make a run to the auto parts store today, and get some shoes for it. I might just change those wheel cylinders to begin with and see if we can't get that brake system to get the air out of that brake system, get it working again before I go and spend money on shoes. Well, here's why those aren't working. You can see the inside of that wheel cylinder is just totally corroded and destroyed. So even if we'd have broken that bleeder screw loose, nothing would have actually started moving in there. Secondly, these old brake lines, you hear about these things collapsing, and sure enough, the inside of this thing just won't let any fluid through. I just cut the line with a pair of dikes, and the one going back up into the truck, like 2 drops of fluid came out, and that was it. So it makes you wonder about that the rear hose going to the rear drums as well. I guess we'll maybe check that one out too and see if we can replace it. So look at this. I guess that's a piece of the old brake shoe that was in there. I took that rotor off, this thing just fell out on the ground. Thought maybe it was dirt or something, but it's obviously the old lining there. Just completely soaked in, I guess, wheel grease and maybe brake fluid or something. So I guess there's absolutely zero shoe material left on that front shoe there. And same with the back, it's essentially just burned down to zero. Looks like we might have to turn these drums actually. Part of it looks like it's in good shape. I'm guessing the lower section here is where it was sitting. Like this side was down, so it must have had, like there's a bunch of, it may just be old shoe material stuck in there. But yeah, it feels like a high spot. So maybe I can get those lightly turned when I gotta get shoes for it. Well, that took way longer than expected. So I spent about a day and a half trying to figure out how to get 2 rotors turned, how to get a good set of brake shoes. The first one I bought were these 2-inch wide shoes. So the truck originally had 3s. The auto parts store said, nope, this is the only option we have. This is the only thing you'll find on that truck. And it turned out they were too narrow after they ordered them and they got here. So next auto parts store says, sure, I got some of those, which ones do you want? And they luckily had the 3-inch wide shoes in stock, so I was able to go pick those up. So I guess I'll be returning those tomorrow after work. I was also able to get a spring kit, hardware kit, to get all that stuff redone since we broke a spring on the driver's side here, taking it off. And a couple odds and ends, some new caps because we destroyed the caps, and some brake fluid, wheel bearing grease, and try to get the front of this truck button back up here this evening. Hopefully, by the end of the evening, we'll get some brakes actually working again, and we can put this thing back on the ground and start working on that carburetor. Just a little more auto parts store fun. I had the brake rotors turned just to try to clean all that crap out of there, and they turned one, and it told me it was out of round, so I don't see any problems with it. It looks like it's got a clean surface on it, and for what we're trying to do today, I think we're just going to run it. So they cleaned one, they didn't charge me for it. They turned one and didn't charge me for it, but they left the other one unturned and said it's out of round so badly we can't turn it. So I took a 36 grit grinding disc to the inside of it and cleaned all the rusty crap off of there. So hopefully that'll be good enough to run this thing down the road and not have any sort of hot spots or anything. We're not going to drive it real far, not going to drive it real fast, probably not going to drive it down the highway like this or anything, but at least run it down the road a few times, so not too worried about it. Here we go. Here's all the junk I pulled off the front of this truck just to get the front brakes working again. I guess there was no way I was gonna be able to get that thing working out in the field again. We these shoes and the broken springs and the completely just frozen wheel cylinders and stuff, like there's no way that thing would have worked. The hoses were all collapsed on the inside, wouldn't flow any fluid. But anyway, I guess we had good hopes and ambitions, but it looks like there was no way that that dream was actually going to work out to drive this thing straight out of the field and down the road. But it should be working good now, and I'll get this stuff kind of swept up and thrown in the trash, and we'll go on down the road. So, spent the last 2 days kind of fighting with the auto parts store, putting brakes in this thing at night, trying to get them bled out. Finally got that stuff sorted out, so I think I got enough brake pedal now that we got some good braking power in the front. The rear brakes are still a little bit sketchy. One of them seems like maybe it's still frozen. The other driver's side brake seems like it's working-ish. Emergency brake still isn't there, so. But I think it'll at least go down the road now and at least stop enough that we'll be fine just going around the yard or up and down the road a little bit and stuff. I'm trying to get the carburetor fixed and get it rebuilt. So we'll do a video of rebuilding the carburetor, and maybe I'll post that as a separate video so we don't have to waste time on the details of the carburetor while we go through that and try to get this truck just on the road and running and get back to the fun part. So go ahead and get this carb pulled off here and take it over to the bench, work through it, and hopefully with just a radiator flush and checking the timing, we can actually run this thing down the road and see how it goes. Alright, so we'll work on getting this carb pulled off here. Looks like it's super simple. There's a spring here for the throttle return, which just unclips off of here. You can lay that back on the manifold. There's a fuel line that goes into it, and there's 4 bolts to hold it down. And there's a throttle linkage, which is nothing more than one clip here. I'm going to push down with a screwdriver and disconnect. And now, with that clip folded out of the way, hopefully you can see that this rod just falls out. Oops, and this bracket fell off here. This little attaching point fell off with it. So set that to the side so we don't lose it. And I went ahead and seized some of this PB Blast to soak the mounting bolts, because I don't know what sort of shape those things are in, but I'm afraid they're going to be pretty crusty. And then I soaked the flare fitting where the fuel line goes in as well, just to try to get some lubrication in there, see if we can make sure it's not corroded. I'm worried that when I go to take it off, it's just going to bind up on this old copper steel line here and twist the thing up. But I'll go ahead and take that off. There should be, on most applications, you'd have this choke cable hooked up. Clearly mine is not hooked up and has seen better days. To figure out what to do with that and see if that cable even moves anymore. Here's the vacuum hose that goes to the distributor for timing advance. To break this flare nut loose here is a great time to break out those flare tubing wrenches that your dad gave you that you never have found a use for. And let's see if we can see this PB Blast help us out here. Oh man, it's kind of rounded off. Oh, well, this might actually move. This thing looks like somebody has stacked 2 different size nuts around the base of it. There's a 1/2 inch nut here, which is just not a big deal. And looks like the rest of these are probably 7/16. I'm not sure what the OEM ones were, but I assume they matched. And so normally you would have to take a screwdriver and loosen this connection here where the choke cable goes through. You just loosen that, and then you would loosen this hold down here that actually holds the sheeting of the cable for the choke cable. And the choke cable, as you pull it back, it pulls this thing down, and I guess this plate would move with it, which the plate's kind of stuck here. There it goes. Might have to reset that a little bit too. But anyway, that would be it. And then if you had an electric choke on here, you'd pull the electric choke wire, and that'd be the end of that. So it should come off real quick. Oh yeah. Maybe you can see the gasket even. So we're going to try to get this carb stuck back on here this evening and try to fire this truck up with the new rebuilt carburetor and set the timing on it and see if it'll idle and see if it'll run any better than it was before. So we got this base of the intake manifold cleaned up, got the carb base gasket ready to go back on here. I'll drop that on. Carburetor's ready to go back on. So we'll get it set up here and get this linkage and these fuel lines hooked back up to it. So get all those nuts started and work on tightening those nuts down, and if nothing else, the carburetor at least looks better on there. You can take this truck to a truck show now that the carburetor's all cleaned up. Looks like I know what I'm doing. So next order of business will be to fix this heater hose here where it has this crossover port. It looks like it's a piece of 5/8 hose. I've got an extra piece of like a foot of 5/8. So it looks like it's about the same diameter. I'll pull these two hose clamps off of here, break this loose, probably just take some like box knife or something to cut that hose and then try to peel it up out of there. And my hope is I can just take this hose and fold it in half and then stick it on both those nipples at once and get it to press down in place. Not sure it's going to work. We have to take the water pump off, which I certainly don't want to do, but I'll get a screwdriver and get that loosened up. Oh no. Well, that doesn't seem good. Seems like we might have a broken nipple on that intake manifold. Shot a PB blaster. These old hose clamps are super cool. They actually say Ford on the hose clamp. You don't see that very often anymore. So that worked out better than I thought it would. I just took a piece of hose and just pinched it in half and then was able to push down and force it in, and with a little bit of lubrication on each inside of the end of the hose, it just snapped right into place. So I feel like I got pretty lucky there. I'm going to take a couple of hose clamps now and I'll just open these hose clamps up all the way here and wrap them around. Okay, so hope that that holds our water leak back, and at this point put some water in the radiator and push this thing outside the shop, pour a little bit of fuel down in that carburetor and try to make this thing pop off and get it to idle down and try to set the timing back on it. Okay, here we go. Make a little healthy shot of starter fluid in there, see if we can help that fuel pump a little bit so it doesn't have to fill that bowl back up. spec. This thing says it's putting out 14 volts, so it says that this thing claims the alternator is actually charging, which with a couple broken wires, I have no idea how that's happening. We're at 1,000 RPM now, so I can back it down to about 600 RPM. Alright, so this thing is now idling around 600, 650 RPM. I got the light set for a 12-degree advance. You can see the motor's got a little bit of a stumble to it. It acts like it's got a burnt valve. So here's what I'm looking at with the light down here. That pink light every time it comes around there, that pink line. So it says we're right at 12 degrees before top dead center right there. So it's possible that that's a ported vacuum. It's sitting essentially zero vacuum right now at idle. Which in a 69 model I wouldn't think that's what it's doing. I'm not sure I have a way to tie into any sort of a regular manifold vacuum here. Well, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. So I'll go ahead and shut this truck off and we'll let it cool down. Actually, I'll move the camera real quick. Let's see what this sounds like real quick. Might be kind of fun. As we look underneath here, we can see that radiator fluid. Looks like it's coming out of that radiator, dripping out of those little pinholes and everything else. Every time I rev the engine up, the fan sucks water out, and it sprays water all over the engine compartment as it's sucking it through against the radiator there. Yeah, it's like those little pinholes down inside of there just leaking out. So the radiator seems like it's pretty full of junk. I would like to get the radiator flushed out a few times, put some radiator flush through it before attempting to put a new radiator on it. Well, it's got some temperature in it now. Oh, we'll leave that on there. It seems like it's gotten warm enough. It's trying to push that off. I'll turn a fan on it here, and maybe tomorrow morning we'll take this thing down the road. Alright, here we go. Maiden voyage. Maybe the brakes don't work, maybe they do. Tommy's flying the drone over us. Well, it ain't maiden voyage. On the road again from 1969. Also, can Rob drive a 300 tree? Shifted. Still keeping up? How fast is that drone? We're good. Hey, the speedometer works. It's going 20 miles an hour. Shit, yeah. rocking? Hell yeah.
Turn the air conditioner on?
Yeah, need to. You might have a problem with the AC. You might need to put some more refrigerant in there. I wish I could see on the back of this thing. Safety first. Ooh, get that power steering fixed. Sucks in a lot of air, doesn't really go anywhere though. There's power lines here, watch out for that. Send you back in your seat.
Damn.